Welcome back to Boring Nature to help you fall asleep. Tonight, we're entering the world of the mudskipper, a strange little creature that blurs the line between fish and explorer. We're travelling to a soft, sleepy corner of the world where the land meets the sea and the tides sweep gently across the shore. And deep within the soft mud, a small burrow lies hidden, its entrance barely visible in the soft shadows. Inside, a mudskipper rests, its tiny body curled up snugly in the earth. Before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these sleepy journeys into nature. Let me know in the comments what time it is for you, and where in the world you're listening from. Long ago, in the steaming tidal zones of what we now call Southeast Asia, as the Earth's climate shifted and mangrove forests crept outward across muddy shores, an unremarkable little fish began a quiet transformation. This fish, a distant ancestor of today's gobies, spent most of its life like any other, darting through brackish water, feeding, breeding, and hiding from predators. But something was different about this lineage. Over countless generations, some of them began lingering at the edges of land a little longer, venturing onto the mud when the tide receded. What followed was one of nature's most curious evolutionary experiments, the rise of the mudskipper. Back on our beach, the tide, having receded for the night, leaves behind a glistening expanse of damp earth. It's a world of quiet reflections, where the water and the sky meet in gentle harmony. In the soft, silent burrow, the mudskipper rests, its eyes closed in a peaceful slumber. As the first soft rays of the sun begin to peek over the horizon, painting the sky with delicate shades of pink and gold, it begins to stir. Slowly, its fins twitch and stir, feeling the soft pulse of the earth beneath it. The small creature unfurls, its body stretching ever so gently as it rises from its peaceful rest. For a moment, it remains still, listening to the world outside, feeling the warmth of the sun beginning to reach down to the cool earth. This place is where mangrove roots grip the earth, forming tunnels of shade over wide expanses of soft, tidal mud. As the light of the sun spreads across the flats, the fish emerges. All around are other mudskippers. 23 species in total, part of the subfamily Oxydacinae. They vary in size and colour, from deep olive to light brown. Today, mudskippers, small, bug-eyed fish with fins like limbs, skitter across the glistening mudflats of the Indo-Pacific as if they were miniature land dwellers. These small fish, with eyes perched on top of their heads and stubby pectoral fins, look a bit like something caught between a frog and a fish, but less dramatic than either. Their fins have adapted to help them push themselves across the mud in short, clumsy hops, and they've developed the ability to breathe through their skin and the lining of their mouths, allowing them to survive on land for long stretches. They also store water in their gill chambers to keep their gills moist. These adaptations are impressive in a technical sense, but rarely lead to anything especially dynamic. They live in tidal zones, which are exposed and then submerged as the tide comes in and out. To cope with this, mudskippers developed a few useful features. Unlike most fish that suffocate quickly out of water, mudskippers have evolved the ability to absorb oxygen through their moist skin and the linings of their mouth and throat. They even store water in their gill chambers, keeping their delicate breathing structures wet so they can function while the fish is on land. It's a system not unlike what early amphibians might have used during one of life's greatest transitions, from water to land, some 360 million years ago. Back on the beach, the mudskipper leaps lightly, effortlessly, carried by the gentle strength of its tail, a smooth, lateral push propelling it gracefully up to 60 centimeters, tracing the same familiar paths like a quiet dance across the land. Its movements are fluid and rhythmic, each hop an echo of the day before, each step a connection to the earth it knows so well. The tidal mudflats move in slow rhythms. Fiddler crabs wave claws through the air. Tiny snails draw silvery trails behind them. Insects hover above the surface, then disappear into the mangroves. The mudskipper remains active on land throughout the daylight cycle, moving with controlled energy, patrolling a small patch near the water's edge. Feeding occurs intermittently. Small insects, crabs, and mollusks serve as prey. Like others of its kind, this fish is carnivorous and opportunistic. Blinking happens frequently. The eyes, held high on the head, lower as a membrane, the dermal cup, rises to shield them. This action, unique among fish, protects and moistens the eye in air. There are no specialized glands. Lubrication comes from mucus and water, stored or absorbed from the environment. Blinking occurs more in high evaporation conditions and when debris or contact threatens the eye. At times, there are upright stances, fin extensions, or rapid bursts of movement, typical physical displays used during the mating season. These signals function as visual cues to other mudskippers, part of reproductive behavior. Clouds drift over the shoreline and rain begins to fall. Droplets tap gently against the mud. Mangrove roots darken as water beads and flows along their surfaces. The fish remains still beneath an exposed root. Rain maintains the essential moisture required for breathing on land. Cutaneous respiration, absorbing oxygen through the skin and mucosal surfaces, depends on this thin layer of water. Without it, retreat to water or shelter becomes necessary. But now, with rain falling, conditions remain ideal. The fish rests in place. The burrow lies just ahead, a gentle haven carved over time. Beneath the soft, damp surface, the burrow slopes downward, winding its way through the cool, moist earth. Its ceiling is smooth and vaulted, like the quiet shelter of a secret world. Inside, an air pocket lingers, a breath of life kept in the stillness of the burrow, offering the mudskipper the ability to survive in the gentle embrace of water, even when the air within is thin and the world outside is submerged. The tide begins to return. A line of foam marks its slow advance. The mud deepens in colour, saturated by both rain and seawater. The fish turns and begins its return to the burrow, descending into the shaded hollow below. The burrow, with its quiet sanctuary, also becomes a nest. When the soft whispers of mating season arrive, a male carefully excavates and tends to the tunnel, shaping it with gentle precision. Soon, a female enters, her movements slow and graceful, as she deposits her eggs along the smooth walls of the chamber. Inside, the magic of life unfolds quietly as the eggs are fertilized in the stillness of the burrow. Once her task is done, the female departs, leaving behind only the soft echoes of her presence. The male remains, watching over the eggs with unwavering patience. In the peace of the burrow, he ensures that the delicate balance of the air, the moisture, and the warmth is just right, protecting the precious eggs as they begin their quiet journey of development, safe within their hidden world. The sun begins its slow descent. Shadows stretch across the tidal flat as the light softens, turning gold and then amber. Above, egrets stalk the shallows in patient lines. Below, the water laps gently at the edge of the mangroves. The tide recedes again, leaving rippled patterns across the mud. Tiny bubbles rise to the surface, traces of life below. With the water gone, the flats open once more, wide and still, breathing quietly beneath the sky. The mudskipper emerges. Moist and steady, it lifts itself from the shelter of the burrow and begins to move. Its body is adapted to this moment. Enlarged gill chambers retain water, sealed tight by muscular valves. The gills inside remain wet. The fish can breathe in air, both through its gills and through the lining of its mouth and throat. Movement is slow at first. The pectoral fins brace and extend, each motion deliberate. The fish navigates over the sticky surface, across algae-covered stones and shallow rivulets. It pauses at intervals. Eyes, always elevated, observe the land above and around. There is little wind. The mangrove leaves barely shift. Insects hover above still puddles. Crabs move in zigzags, ever alert, disappearing into burrows at the slightest tremor. Another mudskipper appears nearby. It is of a similar size, possibly a rival, possibly a mate. Between them lies a neutral patch of open mud. The first fish lifts its head slightly, raises the dorsal fin. It stands almost upright. This posture is part of a visual display. In the breeding season, such actions carry weight, signaling strength, readiness, or warning. The second fish pauses. It, too, raises its fin. For a moment, the two hold their positions, neither approaching. Then, with a swift flick of the tail, the second fish darts away across the flat, its body undulating with each short skip. The first lowers its fin and resumes its slow patrol. These rituals play out often across the flats. Postures, bursts of motion, and careful spacing all serve their purpose. Mudskippers maintain territories, small, familiar zones close to their burrows. Within these areas, they feed, court, and defend. The boundaries are invisible, but understood. Near a patch of decaying leaf matter, the fish stops. Its eyes remain fixed forward as it lowers its body slightly. A quick flick of the mouth, and a small crab disappears. The fish pauses, then moves again. Its diet is varied. Tiny arthropods, snails, small crustaceans, whatever moves on the surface or within reach. Feeding is efficient but unhurried. The mud is rich with life. Detritus from the forest above collects here, broken down by bacteria and consumed by invertebrates. The fish moves across this living floor, taking what it needs. Some mudskippers feed on detritus itself, sifting through the mud for organic matter. Others, like this one, hunt. The tidal flat is both a hunting ground and a refuge. As the sun reaches the horizon, the air cools. A soft, warm wind moves across the surface. The scent of salt and silt mixes with the earthy smell of wet roots. The fish slows its movement. Blinking becomes more frequent now, the dermal cup rising gently over the exposed eye. The membrane protects and moistens, essential in the drier evening air. The fish's body remains damp, glistening under the amber light. A heron passes overhead. Its shadow sweeps across the flat in silence. The fish does not react. It is still, flattened against the earth, eyes unblinking now, waiting. All around, life slows. Crabs tuck into burrows. Small fish retreat into shaded pools. Even the insects lessen their movement. settling into the leaves of the mangroves or drifting upward into the air. As darkness begins to fall, the fish turns once more toward the burrow. The entrance lies just beneath a twist of root, nearly invisible now except for the disturbed edges of the mud. It lowers its head and slides inside. The tunnel narrows, sloping downward, air trapped at the top. Inside, the walls are smooth. Water seeps in at the lower end. The temperature is cool, the oxygen limited but sufficient. The fish finds its place within the hollow chamber, unmoving. This is rest. There are no dreams, no thoughts, just the slow rhythm of breath, the stillness of a body adapted to a world that shifts constantly between sea and sky. Outside, the tide will rise again. Water will return, covering the burrow, lifting foam to the base of the mangroves. But here, in the dark, the mudskipper remains, alive, at ease, at home. The tide arrives in silence. Far out beyond the mangroves, the ocean swells. Its surface ripples under moonlight. Water pushes inland, inch by inch, touching the outer flats, then sweeping over them. Shallow channels fill. Pools become streams. Mud disappears under a clear layer of brackish water. Above the shoreline, mangrove trees shift gently. Their roots, like fingers, remain anchored in the wet earth. Air roots breathe in the quiet night. Small nocturnal creatures move among the branches, bats, crickets, tree frogs. But beneath them, the intertidal world rests, in a buried chamber beneath the mud. The mudskipper remains motionless. It does not rise to meet the tide. It does not swim. It stays within the air pocket inside the burrow, where oxygen persists despite the rising water level above. Its body is built for this. The gill chambers stay tightly sealed. The soft tissues of the mouth and throat continue absorbing oxygen. Metabolism slows slightly, enough to conserve energy, but not enough to sleep. The chamber is humid. The water does not flood entirely. Here, the fish is safe from predators, from sudden currents, and from the chill of open water. Outside the burrow, other aquatic creatures stir. Fully aquatic gobies swim along the soft bottom, gliding through submerged roots. Tiny eels slip through grasses. Crustaceans emerge from deeper holes, filtering water for plankton. But mudskippers wait. Not all remain underground. A few still move through the shallow water above the mud, their bodies skimming the surface, rising occasionally to breathe from retained air or surface water. Their gill structures remain rigid, even in air, which helps them stay prepared for a return to land. But for this individual, still within its tunnel, there is no need to rise. The burrow holds what it needs. When oxygen levels drop, it shifts slightly. A film of mucus protects the skin. Its blood retains oxygen efficiently. When necessary, it slows down the breakdown of amino acids to avoid producing too much ammonia, a byproduct difficult to expel in air. This is survival, not struggle. The mudskipper is not waiting in distress. It is simply existing, adjusted to the rhythm of land and sea. The moon climbs above the canopy. Its light touches the flooded flats, turning the surface silver. The world is quiet, the tide at its highest. Water laps at roots, fills the channels between trees, and flows gently over the hidden burrows. Near the edge of the forest, a predator stirs, a water snake weaving its way through the shallows. But the burrow is deep, hidden, and uninviting to intruders. There is no movement to betray its presence. In another section of the mudflat, further from the shore, smaller mudskippers rest against exposed roots. They remain above water, their skin glistening, their breath still functional. The species vary, some larger and more territorial, others smaller. their habits more communal. Among them are species like Periophthalmus argentilinettus, one of the most widespread. In moonlight, faint outlines of spots reflect in muted colour. These fish are active by day, but at night they rest with eyes still raised, still blinking, occasionally under the protection of the dermal cup membrane. Beneath the surface, the mud remains soft and cool. Water settles above like a sheet of glass. Microbial life continues unseen, breaking down plant matter, feeding the cycle that sustains the flats. Mudskippers, buried or still, are part of this system. Each burrow contributes to the aeration of the soil, bringing oxygen down into anaerobic layers. The chambers serve multiple purposes: protection, breeding, oxygen control. Some even hold modified pockets to trap air bubbles maintained deliberately during the day, used at night for survival. There is no wasted effort. Every part of the fish's body remains suited to the environment. Its radials and rays, the structure of its fin joints, its divided muscles, each piece evolved to navigate this fluid world between land and water. The tide holds at its highest for a while, then begins its slow retreat. The water slips back across the mud, uncovering it inch by inch. Pools are left behind in shallow impressions. Air returns to the surface. Frogs call distantly from the forest edge. Birds rustle in the canopy above, preparing for morning. Inside the burrow, the fish stirs. It senses the change not through sight or sound, but through pressure. The water above lightens. The air pocket refreshes as diffusion occurs again with the changing tide. The fish adjusts, keeping still but preparing. There is no rush. The world it inhabits does not shift quickly. It moves in long, predictable waves. The fish has no need to anticipate or hurry. It simply adapts as it always has. Outside, the mudflats glisten once again. Soon, the fish will return to the surface. But for now, it remains in the shelter of its hollow, part of the breathing earth. Dawn arrives quietly. The sky lightens before the sun crests the horizon. Faint shades of lavender and soft orange spread across the mangrove canopy. Light drips through the branches, tracing lines on the forest floor. The tide continues to retreat. Water drains from the mudflats and returns to the sea. The earth exhales. Burrow entrances reappear. Dark holes in the soft mud, small and round, with smooth, arched ceilings that remain intact even after the tide's weight has passed. Air circulates slowly through them. The mud around each entrance glistens with moisture and early light. In one of these burrows, the mudskipper waits near the upper chamber. The water no longer reaches this depth. The air pocket is fresh. Above, the surface is uncovered, exposed to the morning light. The mudskipper begins to move. It shifts forward, using the jointed pectoral fins to press upward. The movement is slow and deliberate. Muscles push through the mud, and the long body follows the curve of the tunnel toward the opening. Fins grip, tail supports, and in a quiet moment, the fish emerges into the open air. Light filters across the flat. The mud is damp and rich with scent. Tiny bubbles rise where oxygen escapes from the soil. Insects hover low, drawn to the warmth. Crabs scurry sideways near roots. Shells left by the tide sit in shallow pools. The mudskipper rests outside its burrow. Its eyes, raised high on its head, adjust quickly to the brightness. They move independently, scanning the surroundings. The body stays close to the mud, pectoral fins pressed beneath, like limbs folded to rest. The skin glistens with moisture. There is no rush to feed. No immediate need to move. Instead, the fish pauses, taking in the light and humidity. The mucosal lining in its mouth continues to absorb oxygen from the air. Its gill chambers remain closed, holding moisture inside. Breathing continues quietly, efficiently. The day has begun, but it begins slowly. Across the mudflat, others emerge. Species differ. Some are small and spotted. Others are larger with hints of blue or rust on their flanks. Males begin to stir, moving near their burrows, posturing slightly, raising dorsal fins, arching their backs. These displays are practiced and restrained. The mating season is near. The mudskipper from the burrow moves just a little, crawling forward in short pushes. Each movement uses specialized anatomy. The radials of the pectoral fins extend from the body, creating hinge-like joints. Muscles inside the fin control movement precisely. The abductor superficialis muscle splits into sections, one working the upper rays, the other the lower. Together, they produce coordinated steps, allowing the fish to walk forward. The tail assists only occasionally. If startled, the mudskipper could flex laterally, using a sudden push from the tail to leap. Some leaps reach as far as 61 centimeters, more than 6 times the length of the fish itself. But there is no need for that now. This is not a moment for alarm. This is the still morning. The world around the fish is full of gentle movement. Water recedes into narrow channels. Small fish dart in the shallows. Periophthalmus argentilonetus, a widely distributed species, moves between pools with quick flicks of its fins. It hunts opportunistically, small crabs, insects, and arthropods in its path. Others, like Boleoptilomus boddati, feed differently. Their broad mouths sweep across the mud, gathering organic material. Detritus fuels these fish, dead plant matter, broken down remains. Every species finds its place, each adapted to a slightly different niche on the mud. The mudskipper pauses near a low root. It watches from stillness, eyes blinking with the dermal cup. This blinking, unlike that of terrestrial animals, is not produced by eyelids. Instead, the eye sinks and a membrane rises to cover it. The blink is slow, soft, and keeps the eye moist and free of debris. This blink evolved not for expression, but for survival. It protects the cornea from evaporation. It keeps vision clear. And in the stillness of morning, it happens without urgency. A simple and effective act. Sounds return to the flat. Above, birds begin to call. Egrets pass over the trees, searching for exposed prey. Somewhere, a mudcrab clicks its claws against a shell. The sun rises higher, brushing the ground with more heat. The mudskipper adjusts its position, turning slightly toward the shade. Moisture is essential. Too long in dry sun, and the skin begins to lose its ability to breathe. The fish keeps close to the burrow or near damp roots where condensation lingers. Its world is not water and not land. It is the thin space between them. This is the rhythm. Not linear, but circular. Tides come and go. Days pass and return. The fish does not follow time as humans do. Its instincts follow pressure, scent, humidity, temperature, oxygen. In this cycle, nothing is wasted. Everything is timed to the needs of the body and the world it inhabits. For now, the mudskipper remains where it is, half in shadow, half in sun, breathing, watching, existing in the soft space between two worlds. When evening comes again, it may return to the burrow. The tide may rise, or it may remain above ground, moving among roots and pools. It will not need to decide. It will simply respond, as it always has. The sun has risen higher now, but still the light is soft. The mangroves cast long shadows across the flats. Their roots twist and braid through the soft soil, creating cool places where moisture lingers longer than in open areas. These are places where mudskippers often remain during the brightest hours of day. The mudskipper rests near such roots. Its movement has slowed further. The moisture in the environment remains just enough to sustain the processes of skin and gill chamber respiration. The dermal layer stays moist. The air is humid. A breeze passes low to the ground, but the mudskipper does not need to respond. Everything it needs is already here. Beneath the visible mud, tunnels run in arcs and curves. Some stretch deep, others are shallow. The burrows serve many purposes. They provide shelter from predators. They offer safety during tidal flooding. And most critically, they serve as controlled environments for breeding. During breeding season, a male will refine this space. He will spend time clearing silt, deepening chambers, compacting the walls. It is not for comfort, it is for function. The eggs require steady oxygen. They cannot float freely in open water. The burrow's chamber creates the microclimate necessary for them to develop. Mudskippers have developed many adaptations for this life. Their skin has dense capillaries to assist in cutaneous respiration. Oxygen passes through when conditions are wet. Their gill chambers are modified to store air bubbles, retained by tight closures at the gill slits. The gill filaments remain firm and separated, even out of water. This combination allows the mudskipper to remain terrestrial for extended periods. Some species spend as much as 75% of their lives above the surface. But the cost of this capability is constant dependence on humidity. Every movement must be measured against the risk of desiccation. Every patch of shade matters. Every breath depends on moisture. On the flats, a slight change in the wind may shift these conditions. But for now, the balance holds. When the time comes, the mudskipper may feed. For this individual, the preferred prey includes small insects and crustaceans, organisms that move just above the mud surface or linger near roots. Eyes on top of the head allow the mudskipper to see in all directions without lifting its body. It moves slowly, guided not by sight alone, but also by the shifting vibrations of the mud. A subtle pressure, a ripple in the soft ground, these signal opportunities. A quick lunge, a flick of the pectoral fins, a suction created by the mouth, and the prey is drawn in. Then motion ceases again. The mudskipper returns to stillness, conserving energy. Every movement must serve a purpose. Every choice is informed by instinct shaped across generations. The water progresses in pulses. First, it touches the lower reaches of the channels, sliding up through the cracks in the flats. Then, over time, it begins to fill shallow depressions and coat the surfaces with a sheen. Tiny bubbles form and burst signs that air is being displaced beneath the mud. The mudskipper's eyes remain alert, but still. Its body is adapted for these changes. Unlike other fish that panic when the water disappears or rush when it returns, the mudskipper exists between those states. It neither flees from the flood nor waits in desperation for it. Instead, it remains prepared for movement, for stillness, for land or water. As the tide rolls over the flats, the texture of the surface transforms. Dry mud becomes slick, crust becomes fluid. Tiny invertebrates rise with the moisture, and sediment shifts under the shallow waves. Burrow entrances begin to fill. In some places, small bubbles rise and then stop, air pockets sealed inside until needed. The mudskipper rises slightly now, its pectoral fins flexing. Not in alarm, in adaptation. The limb-like fins brace gently against the softening surface. The fish lifts itself just enough to remain balanced. Then stillness again. It does not retreat. It does not venture out. It simply stays within the zone it knows, where air and water blend. In this world, there are no clear borders. Where sea becomes land, and land becomes water again, every surface is fluid. The mudskipper lives in this edge zone, a place that changes shape and depth with every hour. Here, survival is not defined by speed or strength, but by flexibility. The returning water reaches the mudskipper now. It laps gently around its body. Not deep enough to submerge, but enough to coat its skin, to wet the fine film that allows oxygen to pass, enough to cool the shallow burrow below. There is no urgency, only adaptation. The waterline advances further. Now the mudskipper is partially submerged. Its fins adjust. The tail lowers. Buoyancy returns. The gill chambers, still sealed around pockets of air, now open slightly. Water flows through. Oxygen enters by more familiar means. Everything is recalibrated in seconds. The mudskipper is suited for this transition. It is not a compromise, but a specialization. No longer strictly aquatic and never fully terrestrial, it thrives in spaces where others cannot stay. It does not swim yet. It remains close to the burrow, anchored by knowledge of the structure below. The space it dug will not collapse under pressure. The vault holds. Inside, pockets of air remain intact, useful for when water floods the chamber fully. As the tide rises, so too does the movement. Other mudskippers begin to emerge or retreat, depending on their strategy. Some float near the surface, scanning for insects drawn down by the change. Others return to their burrows, to feed or rest. Above the water, the air grows denser, cooler. The sounds change. The calls of distant shorebirds echo across the mangrove fringe. Crabs scuttle beneath roots. Ripples expand across the surface, then settle. Life adjusts again to this temporary condition, high tide in the flats. The mudskipper moves now, only slightly. It glides just above the substrate, supported by water. The joints between fin rays flex and bend. These are not like the fins of swimming fish. These are tools for pushing, bracing, climbing, crawling. Whether in water or on land, they serve the same purpose, controlled movement. Within an hour, the tide reaches its peak. The flats are covered in a shallow sheet of water. Burrows are filled. The mudskippers are less visible now, many beneath the surface, resting. There is no need to travel far. This world, for them, is complete. Water has returned. But the cycle continues. The sun will arc westward. The tide will retreat again, and the flats will breathe out. The mudskipper does not need to anticipate this. It only needs to remain. Now the water lies over the flats in a calm, glassy sheet. All signs of the cracking, sun-warmed mud are erased. What was once dry is now quiet and submerged. The burrows are filled, the air above is thick with warmth, and life continues, not disrupted but rearranged. The mudskipper does not swim. It rests, supported just enough by the shallow tide. Pectoral fins spread gently against the substrate. Its eyes, still high on its head, peek above the surface, watching, not searching. There is no need for haste, no need for pursuit. It is not a time for action, but for remaining. Beneath the surface, the mud is soft. It holds the form of the creature that sits upon it, cradling the belly, cupping the long tail. Fine particles shift slowly with the currents, stirred only by the passage of tiny invertebrates or the occasional eddy. Burrow mouths stay open but quiet. The water is not deep enough to rush. Within the chamber of its burrow, a bubble of air remains. This air will not last forever, but it does not need to. The mudskipper has planned for this. Its body is designed to draw oxygen even in low oxygen water. its metabolism adjusts. It reduces its movements. There is patience here, inbuilt and refined. Above the surface, all is still. Sunlight strikes the water in scattered patterns. Tiny reflections dance along the surface. The atmosphere is thick but quiet. The day is in full motion elsewhere, but here, in the half-submerged world of the intertidal, time is measured differently. Each hour is felt in mud, water, air, and salt. Hours pass. The waterline lowers by just a few millimeters. It is imperceptible at first, but the signals are clear. Surface tension shifts. A small root, once hidden, begins to show. Mud reappears at the base of the mangrove stems. The tide has begun to retreat. The mudskipper knows this, not by thinking, but by sensing. The world changes in temperature, in current, in pressure. It begins to lift slightly, drawing closer to the burrow, not in retreat, but in readiness. In a short while, the water will be gone. The land will re-emerge. And once again, the surface will belong to those who breathe air. It does not rush to meet it. It simply waits. And so the story of the mudskipper comes to a close, not with an end, but with a quiet promise that the rhythm of the world will continue. Tomorrow will come, and the mudskipper will rise again, hopping across the mudflats, living in harmony with the tides and the land. For as long as the earth turns and the tides rise and fall, the mudskipper will be there, a small part of the great, ever-moving dance of life.